Guess I need to change my name, huh?
To USA. Yeah. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, what's
Welcome to the
going on?
live. Welcome to the
USA,
live.
USA. Trump's in. Woo!
Nice. So yeah, we're going to be talking about tonight. You saw in the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about the lockdown with the deer. We're also
Yeah.
going to be talking about the upcoming bear season, and I'm actually going to probably just follow Chris's lead when we get to that section of the live stream here because he hunts bear a lot more than I do. I don't hunt bear as much as I wish I could, but we'll let Chris talk about that.
Sure.
But first, I wanted to talk about Chris. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
Not too bad. A little chilly here. We got a little bit of sloppy snow today, and now it's all changed to rain. But I just checked the forecast, and tomorrow's opener for bear, and looks like in the morning we're gonna be rain free until until about 11 o'clock or so.
Hold on. Oh, I gotta clear my throat. My live stream, my radio voice. I have to clear my radio voice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Now I got the comments up. Holy smokes.
Did you get it? We got hey
Yeah,
Randy,
I
what's
got
up,
it
man?
now.
We got Kyle
Miss
in here.
Bernie, your mom's on. Okay.
Yeah, my mom Kyle is in here. Indiana Chris is in here.
Yeah, nice.
That's about 7 people in here so far. But yeah, we just got on, so thank you guys for coming in. We got Alvin from the American Angler Outdoors, and I have to speak with Alvin.
Yeah.
After, whenever I can get a chance, I need to talk to you, Alvin. We got Yoper in here.
Telling me about. Yeah.
Yep. So
Yoper.
yeah, I just got off the phone with my buddy Bob. He's in Ohio hunting with his son. I'm going to Ohio in the morning because I want to go down and sit. I was going to go sit in the blind with either Bob or his son. We were going to go. I was going to film them, but obviously it's Brandon's first time in Ohio hunting. So Bob, his dad, wants to be with him during the hunt. So they're going to hunt out of the blind in the evening. Gotcha. I won't be going down for the morning hunt, but they're going to hunt in the morning. They're seeing a nice 8-point out back. But they walked into the blind today, Chris, at 2:30. Yeah. And there was a shooter 8-point at the feeder already. And they boogered it up and he ran. He got out of there. They didn't get a chance at him. So they're going to be hunting together from the blind tomorrow. So my plan is go down. I want to hang out with them because I haven't been down there all hunting season because you guys know that I tagged out already. So I'm going down just to get out in the woods. So I'm going to probably go down and change my cameras, cards, and stuff like that, and sit in my stand and just sit there and video and see what happens. Right. In the woods and be there. If Brandon shoots one, then I'll put that on film, and I'll cut a video tomorrow. I've been off work, obviously, you guys know, for the last week because I got surgery on my hand. That's feeling good. I think I'm going to be getting released to go back to work the Monday after Thanksgiving. And then the weekend after Thanksgiving, Friday morning, I'm heading down to camp with my son, and we're going to go sit with my dad in his deer blind to be a couple extra sets of eyes. And hopefully we can witness my dad shooting a buck from the stand, from the blind, and I'm going to make a video with that. So a lot of stuff coming up. Yeah. And I told you earlier, all the products I got for all these, I got to catch up on all these product reviews. I got 2 or 3 reviews right now. I just did the heated vest review. I got the glove review that I did today. I got some boots. I got another camera. I got 2 more cameras coming. I just got a bunch of stuff coming up. So I'm going to be busy. So. But yeah, how is the weather here? Stinks. It's been raining all day. It's been nasty.
I put on my ugly sweater for this weather.
Nice.
Got my ugly sweater going on.
Very cool. Very cool. But yeah, the weather has not been good. I have a doe license. Kyle said if I drop the link, he'll come up. So that's cool. Yes, I will drop that. Kyle, give me 1 second, please. Hey, Dad, what's up?
There's
Thanks
Big
for coming in. Evening, Junior and Chris. So, but the weather's been so crappy that I was thinking I could sneak in a hunt or two being off work, right? And I probably shouldn't be saying that on here, but I could say it. I got sick days. I'm using my sick time. So, but the first couple of days I couldn't climb a tree. I think I could do it now, but I have been great, Amanda. Thank you. Ray, what's up, buddy? Thank you for coming in. Ray's in here as well. Amanda's in here. So I got the okay today from my buddy's father-in-law, he was in Vegas, and I wouldn't shoot a doe unless I had the meat going somewhere right now, because all the deer we got, my dad probably will get one, so we're gonna have a lot of deer meat flying around here. So I have a list of people that every year I get a deer for. So I know the deer won't get wasted, and definitely my buck, definitely my son's buck, they're accounted for. And then if I get any extra doe or any permits, then I want to make sure somebody has them so I can give that meat to somebody who wants it. So my list is full. Everybody got some. Well, his father-in-law, my buddy's father-in-law, wants another one. So I'm going to probably go out late season for a doe. I'm going to try to use my regular compound. We'll see how my hand is, but if not, I'll go out with a crossbow, but that'll be after the rifle season, the PA rifle season, because 2B is in the whole time. I could hunt anytime. It don't go out. So I'm going to wait till, later in the season here, and then I'll shoot a doe. And hey, Tyler, thanks for coming in. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, the weather has not been cooperating at all.
Yeah, usually when it gets that cold after Christmas time, I'll take a crossbow or the flintlock out.
Yep, for sure.
I'm looking forward to flintlock. If I eat tag soup during rifle season, why I will try to crack one with the flintlock, and all bets are off then, because it'll be any legal 6-pointer above will get it.
If it's brown, it's down, right?
Yeah, with the flintlock, because that's fun to me. I don't have a antler restriction for flintlock.
Kyle, there's the link right. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. Kyle, the link is right there in the description, so you can come up whenever you're ready. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just trying to be. I'm sorry that I was being unprofessional right there. All the doe you want, yeah. Like I said, I don't shoot anything unless it's it's accounted for right now. So, and who knows what my dad's going to get, because my dad can shoot a buck and 3 doe down there, and my son can shoot 1 doe down there. So there might be deer meat flying all over the place after that weekend. So,
right, yeah. Rick's got some tags. I think he said. I think his son-in-law or somebody has a farm.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage there. Like I said, I could shoot a doe. Oh, I could almost say not at will, because that sounds like crazy, but I could probably shoot a doe just about whenever. I could say I could shoot a doe 3 out of 5 days if I really wanted to.
I purposely didn't shoot any except for that one. I shot that one on the first night of archery just to make sure I had one in the freezer, and then I've been, like you said, it's been mayhem with those. I could have.
Oh, for sure.
I could have filled the freezer, everybody in the neighborhood here, but what had just happened to me though is I'm not bashing them, because the cost of everything went up, but my butcher went from $80 to $100, which I know some places are more than that. I'm sure
it's 150 in Ohio right now.
That's crazy.
Right, but thank God I can bring them back, because I have butchers here to do them for 80. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah,
well, he cranked his up to 100, and I have a hard time.
Kyle's in here, Chris. I'm going to let Kyle up.
Go ahead.
Here he is.
Hey, Kyle.
How we doing, fellas?
Good. Okay. How are you?
I was just saying what the cost of butchering is here right now. Like we went from $80 to 100, and Ted was saying, he gets some deers for people.
I got a butcher shop story for you.
Well, I was filling, freezers for people too, but I have a hard time at $100 a crack now giving them away.
So check this out. When I got my buck a couple weeks ago, it was on Wednesday night, and I recovered it Thursday morning. And Friday, I was leaving to go up to Northwest Ohio to hunt with my buddy CJ. Mm-hmm. So I could have forced the issue and made time to process it myself, but I really didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I just thought I'll take it to a butcher shop. Since I got stuff going on, I want to get all my gear and everything ready to go up there. I really don't want to fool with the deer. I'll just take it to a butcher shop. Mm-hmm. There's one in my town. I've used it once before in the past. I didn't really like them, but it was fine, and it's convenient. It's right in my town, right? Mm-hmm. These days, butcher shops are kind of getting few and far between. with the economy and everything else. Well, by the time I got done fooling around with some video, recovering my deer, field dress it, my buddy came out, blah, 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 blah. It was middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock when I rolled back into town. And I went to the butcher shop, and you got to drive out back to where you take it in to drop it off.
Yeah.
There's a little alleyway there. They had 8 or 9 deer laying out there in that alleyway. And I looked at the temp gauge on my car. It said it was 62 degrees and it was sunny. And these deer just laying there in the alleyway. I'm like, I ain't dropping it off here. Hell no.
No, you got to trust your butchers, man. You do.
So I knew Utica is about a 30-minute drive, 30-minute drive. I went up there and I was thrilled as it could be. It was only $100 and they do it the way I do it. They debone it. None of this saws through the bone and all that crap. So I was really happy, $100. And then they asked me if I wanted a Euro mount. And I was like, really? You guys do that? They're like, yeah, $75. I was like, hell yeah, let's do the Euro.
That's a good
mount.
Price.
You got that. You got it back pretty quickly too, because
I got it back right when I got my meat back about a week later. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I was just super thrilled. I was really happy that that worked out. And like I said, it was pretty close to a half-hour drive. When I got back, so you're talking half hour there, half hour back, I looked down that alleyway. All them deer are still out there. I was like,
yeah, that's not good.
That's sad.
Our local guy, people just bring him to his driveway and drop them. I mean, last year he had like 50 deer in the driveway. Somebody, I don't know who they called. I don't know who you would call for that, but they called somebody and got somebody out there and got him in trouble. So now he's rented a refrigerated tractor trailer truck, had it delivered and dumped in his driveway. And so when you bring a deer in now, they drag it right up in the refrigerated truck and just leave it. Because he's short-staffed like everybody else in the world right now.
At least that's a means to deal with it. These guys, I don't know if it's lack of space or what, but when I saw all them deer out in the alley and the sun was hitting them and it was 62 degrees, I was like, I'm not dropping my deer here.
Well, that's why he got in trouble. I mean,
I'm not dropping my deer.
Sorry about that. But I'm lucky that I have 2 coolers that I could just go into. I could just take them there, drag them into the cooler, and I just fill a tag out. He knows. I mean, they both know me. Both of my deer processors know me. So I just go in, drag the deer in the cooler, just keep them off to the side because they don't want them in the middle of the cooler, obviously, because other people can drag them in. Take them in, dump them, fill out the paperwork, put it in a box. 2 days later, he calls you back and said the meat's ready. Go down, pick it up, and it's your deer. It isn't like he processes all ground meat and gives you. That's why I take care of my meat when I field dress it correctly, get it there because I know I'm getting my own. A lot of these bigger places, you take your deer in there, it's just a big thing. They grind all the meat at once and just start filling packages up, and you're getting the guy who cut the bladder or cut the guts open over the hindquarters, and they're grinding it up and putting it in there. Or, so I like to get my own deer back, and the people that I get it for, they love it, and they have tasted deer before that were sort of what I call tainted. The people didn't take care of it in the field, or they're not getting the same deer back. So they do appreciate the deer I get them. So that's pretty cool.
We've got a place in town here that people in archery were coming in and dropping deer off, and they was having them sign out a paper and stuff, give them all their information and said, hey, we'll be getting to these in January.
Yeah, I'm sending Ray.
I was like, what?
Really?
January? Yeah, they're hanging them. They're going to put them in a freezer.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's aged meat for.
Oh my gosh! October to January. They said we don't have time. We're doing too many cows and pigs right now.
What are they doing? Dry aging them.
They're just hanging them, letting them. I'm like, no.
Well, I'm sure they'll slice the mold. They'll slice the mold off of them, and then you have some really good tender meat.
Oh, he's killing me too.
Ray's Outdoors. Ray, I'm sending him a sausage making kit here real soon from Jinxum, all the spices. He was I was talking to him today in his live, so I'm going to send him some spices so he can check.
I did the deer burger jerky before. I got one of them jerky guns. I even made a video about it. It did pretty well. That was pretty cool. It tasted good too.
I made deer jerky with that, but I thought I was buying the big gun, and they gave me this little gun. It was like this big. I think you could put like a meatball in it and squirt one jerky stick out at a time. I was like, I threw it out. I was like done with it. I was like,
this was one of them gamekeeper jerky bazookas or something they called it from Walmart.
Nice.
And I mean, it worked good. You had to put like make 4 or 5 meatballs and ram them down in there, and then squeeze them out, and it ended up being really good. We used liquid smoke. Sure. Yep. I used to do my own.
Something here, fellas.
You can try it. Hey, Kyle, if you got your deer available, show it to everybody too if you get a chance.
I can run down and grab it. I was looking at plugging in a light. I feel like I'm in the dark here. I don't usually do this in my bedroom, but
yeah, the liquid smoke. I don't really care for liquid smoke too much, Chris. I don't know why.
No?
I just don't like the liquid smoke.
Is that a little bit better?
Yep.
Lit your face up a little bit.
There you go.
Let me run down and grab that. Mount.
Let's check out that Euro.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. You got a really neat, odd-looking buck. It's awesome, one of a kind.
Yeah, double main beam or something going on there.
They were talking about that they think that could be considered a drop tine.
That's weird.
Yeah, it looked like the main beam, but Kyle, we'll have to ask Kyle about that when he gets back. He was talking about the main beam, but one was growing out under, and they were considering that as maybe being a drop tine, but it looks like a main beam. So I don't know what they considered it. We'll have to ask him when he comes in.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll get on.
I used to mix up to answer Chris there. I used to mix up that liquid smoke in mine.
Did you use a lot of it?
Actually you do, because you use because those bottles are small. You would use like 2 bottles of liquid smoke, like a bottle of teriyaki, some Worcestershire, and then add whatever dry spice you wanted. I always used like sugar and peppercorns and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nice buck, man. So Kyle, let me ask you. Chris and I were talking when you left. Are they considering that a drop tine on that now? I remember you mentioning that in the video or something. Did you consider that a drop tine?
Well, my buddy Scott, he lives real close to a guy that is an official scorer for Buckmasters. And so he's gone over to the guy's house and watched him score, probably 10, 12, 14 different bucks at different times. And what he was talking about after we stopped filming is that if you kind of follow how the grooves, the grooves are like the when they're in velvet, it's like the veins, how they transport the blood and everything through there.
Right.
He said if you follow those, that's how they determine where the beam goes. And he was kind of indicating that since these grooves go, he said that this would be the beam, and these might be considered drop tines.
Gotcha.
Which seems odd to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a cool looking.
Whatever.
It
is very, and the funny thing about it is, me being predominantly hunts public land. The first mature buck that I have in range, I'm going to try to stick him. No,
I don't blame you for that at all.
This rack really doesn't score for much. I don't think it'll touch 120. It's probably 114, 118, whatever.
Nice.
Don't matter to me when you got that wild, unique rack.
Yeah, it's got character. That split is cool there on that G2.
Yeah, he's got the split G2 and then all this funky stuff. I mean, he got me excited.
Oh yeah. Very nice. What's the spread on him, Kyle? 15, 16?
14 and a half.
14 and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice buck, man. Congratulations.
He might hit 115, 120.
I'd say 115, probably.
Yeah.
But it don't matter. It's exciting.
No, it's a nice.
No, it's a trophy on anybody's book for sure. Especially like you said, public land, and it all depends on what makes you happy, obviously, but it also depends on the bucks in your area. Like if you're not seeing big mature bucks in your area, and finally the rut's coming around, the pre-rut or whatever, and you see a mature buck, that's a buck that's probably you're going to take. I'd say 9 times out of 10.
I'll share with you guys this. this spot, it's funny. It's deer hunting can be funny. It's never black and white. It's never the picture perfect roadmap. Like you read about all these things and everything. Like we're out scouting and we're looking for rubs and we're looking for scrapes. I'm telling you what, where I shot this buck, it's a very small piece, and it's the kind of thing that most people would overlook, and I almost overlooked it myself. But then I kind of stopped myself. I'm looking at it on a map, and I went, I bet nobody hunts that. That made me want to go scout it. And when I went in and scouted it in the end of February, early March, I didn't see a bunch of, that's one of my favorite times to scout, by the way. The end of winter and early spring before green up, you can see everything.
Yep.
You can see everything. The trails, secondary trails, the old rubs, the most recent rubs from the previous fall, even the scrapes sometimes are still, they're just hitting it just to hit it. So you can see where they are and stuff. I got in there. I really wasn't seeing much sign. I saw one small scrape and no rubs. But I just kept looking at it from a big picture perspective. It's a honeysuckle thicket. It's a high bank off of a creek that's about 80-foot drop. And along that high bank is a bunch of red oaks. And I'm like, deer are going to be bedding in there, and they're going to be feeding right here. And with the prevailing wind southwest-west, if I perch on this high bank, they have no chance to detect me.
Yeah, so that your wind is actually blowing off the high bank, correct?
Exactly. Any deer down below, my scent's going to be above them.
Yeah.
So they're not going to blow or anything. Not that deer down there would come my way, likely, but they just aren't going to blow and ruin the setup. And obviously the deer coming out of that bedding thicket, they don't have a chance.
Yeah.
So I was like, if nothing, I'm not seeing a lot of big buck sign in here, but I know this is a thicket. It's probably going to hold does. So once we get into the rut, then a buck is going to come check out these does. So I was like, this setup is too good not to at least hunt it. So check this out. My very first hunt this year, which was October the 12th, I hunted it. There's a brewery down the road, and it was a Friday evening. And they had party going on. There's loud music and shit. And I'm just sitting there in the stand shaking my head like, this is just the dumbest thing in the world. Now it was down the road. So it wasn't real pervasive. It wasn't super problematic. It's just one of those things that, as
the deer probably hear that all the time too.
Well, and when we're on stand, it'll just work on it. You know what I mean? Because in our mindset of we're deer hunting, that's not a part of it, right?
Yep.
But again, I did kind of think to myself, I bet this happens every Friday night, and it's probably, part of their routine. It ain't not even a big deal to them. Sure enough, I did see 4 deer that evening, and I saw a nice big shooter buck, and it wasn't this one. There's a nice 8-pointer running around in there, and but he come out right at last light, and he never came my way. When I saw him, he was like 48, 50 yards, and he kind of went down the hill, and I never saw him again. And 5, 6, 7 minutes later, I was out of light. The second time I hunted it, I didn't see any deer, and I didn't know if maybe some hunters had been in there. I had one trail camera in there, but it hadn't shown me any people traffic. But it just bothered me, I got in there, and I loved the spot so much just for there being deer there. So I was hoping, or at least expecting to see a doe or two. I didn't see any deer, and it made me get negative. I'm like, oh, maybe that spot's shot to shit because it's so small. If it would get any pressure, you know what I mean? Deer will just bounce off of it, and then you won't see them in there ever again. And I just kind of thought, you know what? It had been about 3 weeks. I'd hunt my other spots, the spots that I bowed into. And, I was seeing deer. If you watch my videos, I'm getting footage of deer. I wasn't interested in shooting a doe. But I just, something told me, go back to that spot. Go back to that. Sure enough, the third hunt, it worked out.
Well, it seems like that's a good spot because you're on the downwind side of the bedding area, and if there are bucks cruising, they're going to cruise that downwind side of the bedding area, so they don't even have to walk in there. They just walk past it and catch a whiff. If nothing's in there, they just keep going, and you're right there waiting for them to pass you up. So that sounds like it's a great spot.
Exactly. It's a great spot to ambush a deer, whether you're after a big buck or just shoot a deer. But it's got the three things. It's got food, it's got water, and it's got good cover. So, I mean,
you can't go wrong with those for sure. That's sort of like your area, Chris, when you were talking about the hill. You wanted to get to the edge of the hill so your wind's blowing off the hill.
Yeah. I hunt a lot of benches on the mountain, a lot of hillsides and things. So I got to watch my wind, you know.
Yeah.
But
hillsides
I'm not afraid to give them my wind either, though, you know, because I'm pretty anal about my stuff being clean and scent free and me being scent free. You know, I'm not afraid to give them my wind. I have this whole season. Well, today it's over. Archery's over today, and I was never winded that I know of.
Yeah, why is archery?
I never got blue at this year.
That's a question that I have. Why would they end it on a Friday this year?
Well, because bears tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah, you're right. Bears.
Yeah, they transition over. And
I think 2B though. I think 2B here is still open. I think it never closes. I think I could go out tomorrow if I wanted.
You're probably right.
What's up, Butters? Thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
I met him today on a live today. So thank you for coming in, buddy. Appreciate you. So Kyle, thank you for coming up. I appreciate you, buddy.
Oh yeah, you bet.
Yeah, cool story,
man. If you want to stick around, you can stick around. You're more than welcome to stay.
Yeah, around. For the at least for the
lockdown.
The lockdown chat.
So. I don't bear hunt much myself anymore, but we're gonna leave that to Chris today. And real quick here, guys, just let me make an announcement. If you guys don't follow Chris, it's City Sticker Chris or Kyle from Dark 30 Outdoors. Please go over. If anybody in here, Chris, you're in here as a moderator. If you could share both of their links for their channel, I'd appreciate that. And everybody that's in here that doesn't have Chris or Kyle, please pick them up. They're great guys. I've been with them. They're the OGs of YouTube. When I first started out, these guys were on there. They were starting out, I think themselves. I think we all started about around the same time or pretty close. So they're the OGs of the YouTube community here, in my YouTube community anyway. So it's nice to have them up with me. Chris, great friend. I talk to Chris pretty much on a regular basis. Kyle and I do, but lately it just gets crazy. I don't talk to Kyle as much, but we start doing this together. It's a nice thing to get with old friends again too. So, and both of their channels are great channels. They have great content. So go check them out, please, and run their playlists and all that good stuff, especially Chris.
Yeah, I need the watch time.
Because he needs the watch time. He's looking to get monetized. So
I got views and subscribers, but I don't have the watch time.
Well, we'll get.
Are you knocking on the door, Chris?
Not really.
No.
Where you at?
I probably still need 800 hours.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, and that's that because
you know it goes 365. So every next month you get in, it starts subtracting again until you get built up. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been hard to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I need to be more active too. I mean, let's be honest. I do.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that today, Chris, before we got on the live. You know, so we have a plan. So just go over and follow Chris.
I need to be more active. I know that, but
you got to grind, man. You got to grind to get in the club. Yeah. Once you're in the club, you can kick back like me, but you got to grind to get in.
I mean, I'm not even in it for the money, but I just want to get
right.
You know,
it's not even grocery money. You know, it's beer money basically. Is all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just going to be very little money.
Chris, it's okay. Chris, it's Dark 30 Outdoors is Kyle's channel. So if you could, City Sticker Chris is up there. He got your link up there, and then Kyle's is Dark 30 Outdoors.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Okay, well, let's get into the lockdown. That was one of our topics for tonight. And the lockdown, I don't know, guys. They coming out of lockdown? Do you think they're still locked down? Well, let's start.
I'm all good. I'm all good up here.
Let's start by what is the lockdown. Let's go through just to explain to people what the lockdown is.
And it's funny because it's different 5 miles down the road. Over on the mountain where I hunt bear and buck, they went into lockdown right after Halloween. And what I mean by lockdown, like Ted said, if people aren't aware of what's happening, is they're in this chase and seeking phase, pre-rut, as we call it. They go into this phase where they find a doe that's either already hot or going to be in estrus really, really soon. And they link up with her and they won't leave her. And what we mean by lockdown is a lot of times I seen it Halloween night. I was over there on the mountain and this buck chased his doe into a patch of pines that were just like 7-8 feet tall. But this patch was maybe as big as one of your bedrooms in your house or something. That's all the bigger it was. But he pushed her in there and would not let her out. When she tried to come out, he would head her off at the pass, and she must have been smelling good because like 3 or 4 other bucks came in and he had to go out and defend them. And he would go out and they would posture up and you could tell he was the more dominant deer, and they would sidestep him, and he pushed a couple of them around and they got out of there. So lockdown period is kind of a defense mechanism to keep other boys away from his girlfriend, So he sticks tight, and when she's ready to breed and give it up, he's right there for it, and then he'll stick with her for 24 to 48 hours or whatever. And then she's on her own after that. She's free to go. She's out of buck boy jail.
Boy jail. Yep. Yeah, basically.
That's basically it for, in a nutshell.
Yep. Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It's like, the bucks stay real close to the does during that time. They push them around and they sort of steer them into these little off the beaten path type little things, like in people's yards and behind the garages and in little patches and in road mediums and all this stuff where you wouldn't think the deer would be at. They're in there now. That buck gets them out of the way from the herd and stays with them for a few days. And, that's the time when you don't see that many bucks in the woods at that time because they stay
I was having trouble finding doe.
Really?
That time they had them pushed into such thick stuff and wasn't coming out.
Yeah, and that's
there was 3 or 4 days in a row I went out and hunted and didn't see a deer.
Yeah, that
was getting old quick.
Yeah, I think of when I hear the term lockdown, I think of peak breeding. A doe can come in all different times. Is the last couple days of September through maybe the first couple days in January. So those are the fringes, and on the fringes you don't have 80% of them. No, you'll have 1 or 2 or 3% of them. Yeah. But that the vast majority, say 75-80% of the does are going to come in the peak breeding period, and that's what I think of as lockdown.
Yeah.
And some hunters have a really negative connotation about lockdown. I've even heard hunters on like a forum board say, well, I don't hunt the lockdown. I'm like, what, are you crazy? I mean,
anything could happen.
It can be a tough time. Don't get me wrong. I've spent many a days in the field during lockdown and I didn't see a deer, but it's one of those boomer and bust deals. If you're in them, you're going to be seeing all kinds of deer. But if you're not where they're doing it, it's a ghost town, or you'll see yearlings that mama kicked off. If you see a button buck wandering around the woods, his mama's being bred.
I did want to mention that, that's when you see them wandering, that's when mom's almost out of buck boy jail. I mean, when they're wandering around, mom's somewhere close, but she's penned up somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's when I really, glass the areas, but get the binos out, glass around, look around, keep your eyes open, keep peeled. Something was about to happen when you start seeing those little ones all by themselves like that. But mama's got to be close though, Yeah, I mean, they get out on their own, but they're not far from mom. They don't like to go far from mom.
Yeah, I've seen bucks chase the little ones away from the mothers. You know what I mean? They don't like them around. My dad had the experience November 9th, top peak rut, and we were down down our camp, and we had a bunch of young doe in our food plots, and the small young bucks, the spikes. If you've seen the video, the spikes chasing them around, 4 points chasing these little doe around that weren't even 9 months old, 8 months old, and they weren't in their weight even to become into estrus yet.
Yeah,
soon, right. But they weren't there yet. They were getting pushed around and stuff. And the last week we were down there, what was this? Last week, I think, or the week before, my dad passed that 7-point up. Well, we got 23 different doe in our food plot that day. Now, there was a couple groups that probably came back through. Okay. Sure. So we seen 23 deer at different times, put it that way. They were probably the same group, some of them. But at last light, man, they just come pouring in, and they were mature does. And I'm like, Dad, just keep an eye behind them. Keep an eye behind them, because they were mature does coming. And I'm like, all right, there's a buck behind them. Would you know that we had 6 or 7 mature bucks come in, or mature doe come in and feed, and those little bucks were there, nothing behind them. And then right at last light, we had so many deer in our field that we couldn't keep track. You know how when you're like, oh, that's the button buck. Oh, that's the spike. Oh, is that the doe or the button buck again? He come in and he left. Well, then the 7-point came out, and we didn't even know he was in the field, but he was in the field. He come walking over. I'm like, Dad, there's that 7-point. He goes, I'm going to pass him. I'm like, he's bigger than you think. I'm telling you, I'd shoot him. He's like, no. He come back 10 yards, 15 yards in front of us, walked past us. I'm like, Dad, you going to shoot him? He's like, nah, wait. Walked past, stopped, turned around. I got good video of him, and he left. And then I showed my dad after, and he's like, yeah, I should have shot him. I was like, I told you. I said, I told you, but rifle season, if he sees him again, he's going to pop him. I prefer to shoot him with a stick and string myself. But my dad's more of a gun hunter. He likes bow hunting too, but I mean, it doesn't matter to him how he gets them. So if we go down rifle, I'm sure if that 7-point comes out again, but if he comes out early, I don't know if he's going to shoot him early. We'll see what happens.
But yeah, agreeing with Kyle, some of them come in so much different times, and what I was saying was over there on the mountain, 5 mile down the road, like I said, I started seeing lockdown type stuff at Halloween, first 2-3 days in November. Now, just here, what is this? Today's the 22nd.
22nd, yeah.
Last week around here, we were locked down still, and I wasn't seeing much. And I'm, it's like I said, it's just down the road, but it's funny how it happens. And like you were saying about the little ones coming in, and Kyle was saying the fringe deer, someone could come September to January. That's true, because once they get age plus weight, that can controls their like puberty type, when cycle. They can come into estrus in the cycle, So yeah, they get old enough and heavy enough to start breeding.
The earliest that I ever witnessed, I didn't see the actual breeding, but the based on what I was observing, the behavior, I was certain this doe was about to be bred. It was October the 6th. It was an evening hunt, and there was like 3 or 4 does milling around in this cut bean field, and then 2 deer exploded into the field. They come out of the thicket just crashing, and it was a doe. It was a big mature doe, and it was a big mature buck, and they were just full on running as fast as, and the buck was on her tail, like hard, like that's not bumping. He's on her because she's real close, and he's gonna run her around, and she's gonna get tired, and she's gonna stand for him. And I've seen bumping, dozens of times. That's not what I was witnessing on October the 6th, and this was probably 5-6 years ago. But it can happen, but when you see that, that's a one-off. you're not going to see bucks running them everywhere on October the 6th.
You're not going to post. You're not going to post it. The rut's fully on right now. Yeah, you're not going to post that.
Right.
You'll get a
We
lot
saw
of
that as well, Kyle. We did. My boy and I was in a double man stand, and two doe come ripping across the field. The one's tongue was hanging out. She was huffing and puffing, and I said, "Man, that's really weird. I wonder what spooked them." And this real tall spike come running across the field after them, and I looked at my boy. I was like, "Wow, that's early," but he was on it, man.
Yeah.
One of them was smelling pretty.
Yeah.
Kyle sort of tapped on like when it happens. I had a couple of things like what is it, when does it happen, where does it happen, and like how to hunt it. That was my 3 things that I wanted to cover. And Kyle sort of covered that a little bit, like when it happens. And that's basically, like he was saying, the majority breeding time. The majority of the breeding that's what they consider the lockdown. That's exactly what I was thinking myself. You know, you got the 80% of the deer that are ready to be bred, and then you have that 20% that are before, after, in between, and all that, but majority of them. And I think that's the lockdown. My favorite time to hunt, though, is not the rut. It's not when they're pushing. It's when they're tending. I like when they're tending. When they're staying 20, 30 yards, 50 yards behind the doe, and the doe comes walking through your area feeding, and that buck's just staying that same distance away from her. But as she moves, he moves, but he keeps her eye on her and just follows her. I like that because you can get them where you want them to be at and get your shot off. Whereas, you know, how many times have you been in the woods with your bow pulled back, moving around the woods, trying to stop them and screaming at them and jumping and, you know, being an owl, being a squirrel, being a doe, trying to get them to stop, and they don't stop. I don't like full blown rut. I don't like. It's fun to be out there to watch all that, but very rarely do I get a shot opportunity in the full rut. I very rarely can stop, and you can't. It's hard to stop a buck when he's on that doe. You're not calling to them
when he's hounding her because she's close.
Yeah, you can bring your car up to your tree stand, and that buck's not going to move. I mean, I've dropped phones out of the stand. I've waved my hands. I've screamed. I've done all that stuff, and it's fun to watch the chases because it's just amazing what these deer do during that time. But it's very, 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 very rare for me anyway. I don't know. Some people can do it, but I think it's very rare for me. And I have not really shot too many bucks in full rut. I could honestly say that for sure. All right. So where does this stuff happen? And I sort of touched on it when I just named them a couple different areas. Where have you guys seen the lockdown happen, and where do you believe, you know, I believe the bucks take them to a secluded area that a buck feels safe in. So that's my idea. The buck knows what's safe and what isn't. So that buck will try to steer that doe to that area, and it's usually off the grid, somewhere where you wouldn't think that deer would be at, is my experience. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, like I was saying with that, what I saw with my own eyes there was he just ran her into something thick.
Hey, John.
Because she was trying to just beat feet and get away from him, I think, you know. But she kept getting headed off. You know, he was corralling her. And then, you know, every time she tried to get out of there, I mean, she did too. She tried to run downhill, and he chased her down, and she ended up coming back and diving in there. I think it's a defense mechanism too. You know, she can create space that way and keep him off of her.
Yeah, like behind a car, like moving behind a car.
Yeah, I mean,
around a car.
she would get in there and just keep him in, like you were saying before. You know, he just kept his distance, but he kept her in there. I think anything thick.
John's thinking the doe leads the buck off. That's interesting. Maybe away from their young ones. I don't know. I have a question for both of you, but I want to get Kyle's opinion first.
As far as aware, like my focus does change just a tiny bit as opposed to like early season or the pre-rut, you know, when we scout and we focus on buck sign. When we get into what I feel, okay, lockdown's happening, I want to hunt either right adjacent to what I know, where I know does are bedding, or I will find a pinch point or a travel corridor from one doe bedding area to another doe bedding area.
I like it. I like
because
that.
when a buck, after his period, he's been with her for a day and a half, 2 days, and he's done with her. That's where you can intercept him. He's going to go looking for another doe.
Yeah. That's one of the points that I think I'd like to make to the audience is the transition point between does is where you're going to catch them at. If they're gone and don't want to be bothered, you're not going to catch them. You're not going to move your stand. You're not going to move in on these deer because they're going to be in different areas. Okay. You have to set up in the areas where when they're done mating, when they've done breeding that doe and he's done the 2-3 days, whatever he's with that doe, he's done off of that doe and he's looking for more. That's that time where you have to catch that buck in those travel quarters. I believe I like hunting travel quarters from feeding to bedding because I always feel like my percentages are higher in those areas because doe don't really change their feeding patterns during a rut unless they're getting chased by a buck. Okay. So if a buck's looking for a doe, I'm thinking the buck's not with the doe are doing their normal things. They're in the food in the evening. They're bedding in the morning. So I'm in between both of them. So I can catch that buck checking the bedding or checking the feeding areas for the doe. That's why I like the transitions. And I believe you're only going to get that buck in between does. That's what I think. Okay. So how do you hunt a lockdown?
You just wait them out.
You go again and you go again and you go. One thing that I will offer as a tip.
But what do you mean, Kyle? You're not getting them on a camera. There's no deer in the area anymore. They left. So you don't hunt that area.
Right.
Anymore.
So if I mentioned earlier, it's a boom or bust time to hunt.
You're right.
If you go hunt it, let's say you have a lock on a tree and you go 2-3 times and you don't see any deer, no does, nothing. You're going to want to move. Okay. Because you're either in them or you're not. And if you're not in them, you're wasting your time to keep sitting there. So, having a mobile setup like me, I happen to have a climber. The buck I shot this year, I hiked in with my climber. In fact, I told you the first night I had set up there and, the brewery had parties going on and everything else. I'm like, this is crazy. But I was able to observe. And,
hey, JJ.
And the stand, the tree that I set up in that first night,
yeah,
it was based on what I observed. I made a change. I walked with my climber another 50, 55 yards down that high bank bluff, and I was in a better position. I was in a better spot, and I think that helped me. So being able to observe, don't keep sitting there if you're not seeing deer. Go move, fight. Me. Before the season even starts, I like to have at least 3 or 4 different spots that I can hunt. The area that I killed my buck last year, I only had 1 stand in there last year. This year I hung 2 hang-ons. And the reason I did that is because it's a pinch point. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be able to hunt multiple winds. Yeah. In fact, with 2 stands in that one area, I was able to hunt everything except for a northeast wind.
That's what John's saying right here. Rotate stands. I try to set up stands.
With 2 stands, I was able to hunt pretty much every wind except for a northeast wind. So that was really awesome. And then the other spot, I had a ground blind to take my son. I've only had the opportunity to take him twice. I wish I could take him more, but I don't know. We're getting pretty late, and he's on a 2-week vacation with mom. So. I don't know if we'll get out with him again, but that was a totally different area. It was the ground blind. And then there was 2 other spots that I had scouted. The one where I killed my buck this year, and another one I scouted it and I hung a trail camera. It was about a mile as the crow flies from my ground blind. And Ted, that big buck, that big 9, that big tall 9 I sent you a picture of.
Yeah.
I had him on camera at the blind and at the one a mile away. But I never hunted the one a mile away. Mm-hmm. I had the camera in there. I didn't have a stand in there, but I scouted it and I knew how I could approach it with my climber if I felt I needed to get into that spot. But so that's 4 different areas to hunt. and one of them I had 2 different stands and could hunt at any wind.
Mm-hmm.
So if you only have 1 spot or 2 spots, you're kind of limiting yourself. So if you get into that, going back to that lockdown period of the rut, you're either in them or you're not. You know what I mean? And if you can move, you might not have to move a mile down the road. You might only have to move, if you're able to move your stand maybe 150 yards, 200 yards, maybe suddenly you're in them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm really thinking about getting a saddle system just to have it in the truck, to have it with me, or have it down when I go to Ohio, just to keep it in. I do have a stand with the ladder sticks in the garage at my buddy's Bob's down there, but he actually used them this year, and it was definitely needed because he wasn't seeing deer behind the house. They cut the soybeans down, changed the travel patterns. He wasn't getting them at the corner in the bait pile. So he moved the private land that he has permission. He asked, he's like, can I take your stand? I said, yeah, that's what it's for. That's our mobile. That's like our emergency mobile stand. If he wants to use it or I want to use it, we take it and we put it up somewhere else. And he moved that in, and he was on bucks every day since he moved it. He was in a nice, he had 3 ridges coming down or 3 saddles coming into one area in a bottom. He was up on the higher side watching these deer come through the bottom. He made a move on them again, like fine-tuned it into this little corridor where there's 2 thickets, and he's seen his buck that he wanted to shoot, but it was locked down. It had a doe in that thicket, and he wouldn't leave that doe out of that thicket. So there was multiple bucks, satellite bucks going into there because they smelt that doe too, but that big buck just ran them right out of there, and he would see them bucks coming in and out all day, except that big one was locked down on that deer.
That's a classic example. If you're not in them, make an adjustment.
And that's why
you're being in them.
That's why I'm thinking about, I mean, saddles are expensive now. It ain't like it's cheap. I mean, you're looking at about $1,000 to get a whole saddle system with some good sticks, saddle system. I have yet to see one. I want to shop around, okay, because I ain't going to use it every day. I'm not going to use it every time I go out. I want something that I can get up and is safe. So I got to start looking for something like that.
I'm right there with you, Ted, because I hung those 2 stands, and they're big and they're heavy, and my sticks, I put they're sectional sticks, right? Just 3 feet long. But you haul 4 or 5 of those in the stand, and you hanging all that crap in early September when it's still hot out. You're sweating buckets and stuff. I was like, I'm getting too old for this crap. And so I've been researching. Being a crossbow hunter, I really don't feel like I want to go to the saddle system, but I like their approach. They all do this lightweight stuff. They do the lineman's belt for security. And what I'm looking at is the super light sticks that are easy with the Versa button to hang, and lightweight stands. I've been looking at XOP stands. They've got one that's like 6.7 pounds. I can hang that on a tree easily. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if I want that little foot. I don't want that footstool though either. You know what I mean? I do want to stand like you're talking about. I want to be comfortable in there.
I think I want a mobile setup like that. And another thing I'm looking at is I've been filming last year and this year with my
look at John's comment.
With my bridge camera, my mirrorless camera, and it's big and it's heavy and it's bulky, and I have to manually work it when I'm filming. And if I'm going to try to shoot, I think I mentioned this on the video. When I shot my buck, if I had my camera, I almost feel like I would have boogered everything up.
Yep. That's why I go with the lightest setups I can do for recording.
What I've been researching just in the past several days, I want a set it and forget it. And I think the only way that's going to work for me is one of these 360 cameras, where I can just hang it above my head and set it, and I can even have it recording the whole time. Well, if I'm out there for 2-3 hours, it can record the whole time.
Yeah,
it's
the 360
camera, everything. It'll zoom. You can do post edit, zoom to the deer. I mean, that's a set it and forget it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can you move that camera while you're in the stand?
You certainly can. Yeah.
You can, yeah. The only thing, and I like the 360s. I wanted to get one for my boat and everything. My buddy has one for his boat. The only thing I don't like about the 360 cam is the aquarium look. That's the only thing that I don't like about it.
I'm not 100% positive, but I think you can in editing. I think you can
get rid of that.
Either get rid of it or substantially minimize it. For example, a lot of the videos that I've seen, I think that the creators like to do that pan
They do.
to the angle.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot shake the fisheye when you maintain that pan.
Mm-hmm.
But if you eliminate that pan, like say I want to get the shot of my buck.
Yeah, in the wide view, like.
Yeah, instead of having the camera move and then zoom in on the buck, I can just go right to that angle and zoom and freeze it and crop it.
Yeah.
And then it'll be just the regular, rectangle frame. You won't see the fisheye stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
That's how I would probably approach it.
Yeah, I have a lot. I use my camera on my phone. My phone, that iPhone 15, has better cameras than some of the cameras you can buy out there, which is awesome for me. I just made my own camera mount on my scope of my crossbow or my bow, my stabilizer, or even my gun. This clamp and thing to keep it on there. Right. And when I'm out there, man, I get some good shots with I'm happy with what I got. But I would like those season. I got the fourth arrow camera arms and stuff that I'm going to be putting up. And like Kyle said, like, I didn't want to set all that stuff up in Ohio because I'm looking at the buck of my lifetime. Okay. So I don't want to be dealing with camera arms and this and that until I get more under my belt like that, I guess. So the doe season coming up here, I'll have all the bells and whistles up in my stand that I'm going to do different angles. And, I got to have a GoPro that's 8 feet sticking out from the camera, shooting down on me, stuff like that. I'm going to play with that at the extended season. But when I'm out there in Ohio, especially, I'm going with, I want my GoPro on me on one side or the other. I got my camera on my weapon that I'm using. And basically the GoPros are for my B-rolls or for my little explanations. I have it mounted, and my camera on my weapon is what I video with. Now, Chris, you use a Tacticam. How do you like the Tacticams?
I use Tacticams attached to I either have the Tacticam mount that goes in your stabilizer in front of your bow, or I have a clamp that goes on the stabilizer. And I like it for, because you're already pointing at a deer with your bow. So you're already on the deer. Mm-hmm. Now I have stationary ones around me though, if I want to do some stationary cameras, and they're really, really light. So you don't need a heavy, but the thing is,
I wish
the
they had a
stationary
better
thing though
system.
The stationary thing though is hard because usually what I do is I'll set one to my left and to my right and have them just aiming sort of crossing each other, so that you can't miss the shot, I mean, unless it's a hard angle off to your left or right. But
I just wish
that doesn't always work out.
I wish that they would work on their stabilization a little more, like a GoPro stabilization on that Tacticam. And I know they can do it. It might cost them a little more to put it in there, but I think I've watched a lot of people with the shots, and you see that boom, you see that jumping in the shot.
I have tons of those self-filmed hunts with the Tacticam on the end of the bow. And when the bow goes off, it goes fuzzy for a second.
Yeah.
And so you don't really catch the impact. That's why I like a stationary camera.
Yeah, for sure.
I need to get a good camera arm. Actually, what I need to do.
I told you I got the fourth arrow camera.
I need to get a lightweight one and put a.
Yeah, that might be part of my problem. I've been using cheap arms. This whole time, and maybe with a really good arm I'd feel a little bit better about it, but I still have to manually
move
point the camera, make sure the zoom is right. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting older and my eyes have gone to shit. When I'm looking at that little 3-inch screen, I can't a deer that's 40 yards away looks like a little frog down in there. I'm like, where the fuck is the it's like that's again, if I could go to a 360 camera above my head where I don't anywhere I'm going to shoot, it's not going to be in my way. The camera arms, if you put them too low, I can't see them. If you put them too high, they're in your way. If you got to go, you know what I mean? It's just, I want to simplify that filming process to where it's set it and forget it.
That's the joy. That's the joys of self-filming, though, guys. You know that it's one of the hardest things to do is to get that hunt on camera.
It's real tough.
I mean,
the first year, The first year I tried it, I didn't get any of my kills on camera.
It's tough.
I've been pretty
And then-
lucky with my kills, man. I've been really lucky with
The
mine.
second year I did it, I got every kill on camera, and it's been deteriorating since.
Yeah. No,
Now this year was all about making it fun again for me. I didn't.
Right.
I mean, I did take a couple cameras with me.
Yeah.
But like that that doe I shot the first night, I didn't even film her. I didn't even turn the camera on.
Right.
Of course, it happened so quick, it probably wouldn't have happened anyhow.
Yeah.
But it was one of them instances where the 6-point come ripping across the field and blew all the does out, and they ran right in front of me and stopped. And it was like, yeah, okay, whack. They were looking the other way. They didn't even know I was there. And I mean, it just happened so fast. I was like, screw this. I will shoot first and film second anymore.
Yeah.
Because that made it too much pressure for me. I was all about the shot, the camera shot before. It was like I would pass a deer if I couldn't get it on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how serious I was about it before, and that took all the fun out of it for me. So now I'm like, screw it. I will kill a deer and then I'll film and just tell you what happened.
See, I'm the opposite. Now I won't. If I can't get it on camera, if it's a big buck, I would shoot it. I'm at that level. It ain't like I'm gonna pass it up because I didn't get it on film. But I try my hardest to get all the footage.
Sure.
I really do try.
The only thing I've managed to get on film is a couple doe harvests. Last year's buck, it was raining. I didn't take the camera. This year's buck, I should have taken the camera because I knew it was going to stop raining. But because it was raining before I left the house, I was like, I ain't doing it.
There you go, Kyle. There's what John said.
Kyle, you have to answer these questions.
I don't know. This year I kind of backed off the humorous stuff. I don't know why. I just
no jumping out of boats anymore or anything like that, Kyle. I remember that one too. You got some slack for that one too, huh?
Boy, what's his name from the goat farm? He was not happy about that at all.
Randy.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So let's if I was hunting the lockdown, what I would do, obviously you're mobile. I would probably go to the thickest area in my area. If I was hunting an area, I would probably move to, or I would at least go to the thickest part of that area, and I would scout it, or I would look and move my stand to the thickest area. But like I said, if you move to that thick part, you either catch them in there or you're going to miss them because they're transitioning off the next doe. So what do? Do you wait? Do you stay? And I guess it all depends. Like Hal said, if you're not in them, you're not in them. Okay. So, do you move? That's why I like the saddle. I can move to that thick part for today or tomorrow, but then I have my stand in that transition area. I can always refer back to that one. So being mobile is the big thing, I think, for the lockdown, for real.
When Kyle says if you're not in them, you're not in them. Well, I set a bunch of lock-on stands. I've been hunting the same area for so long that up here, I don't ever write anything down, but I just try to remember, that time of year, where was I seeing all the doe? Mm-hmm. And that's where I set my stands up in September, and I put them in those doe areas where I see all the does that time of year, and history just repeats itself. They move into these areas and the bucks follow them in around that time, So, I mean, I shouldn't say I'm limited to areas to hunt, but I'm one of these guys that hunts the same spots every year.
I'm with you, Chris.
It's 100 acres, but I put the stands where they need to be for that time of year. Mm-hmm. I have stands for early October. I have stands for the rut. I have specific stands that I go to for that timing period. So when you say if you're in them, you're in them, I make sure I'm in them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
because you've done your homework and
Yeah.
you already know. Yeah,
I know where they're going to be that portion of time. When the rut starts, they want to move over to this area. Well,
Yeah.
I have a
Let me
stand there, and
stress,
I'm waiting
Chris,
on them.
let me stress this too, because Kyle and you are hunting big woods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm
Mine
hunting
is.
now. If I'm hunting Ohio, I hunt big woods in Ohio, obviously, but
Mhm.
around here, and you know how it is around here. I'm hunting small wood
Yeah.
lots, okay, in between houses. There's a 50-yard stretch of woods
Yep.
that run 100 yards, and they're coming from somebody's yard that have
Oh, yeah.
apples.
I know.
And
I used to do it too.
and they're probably dumping corn out in their yard to see the deer at night, or their grandkids are watching the deer feed at night, and they're
Urban
coming back.
assassinations.
So what I do is I hunt. I don't move my stand. I don't have a rut stand. I have a, and I don't know if this is correct. I'm not a professional, but I put my stands in those transition areas I see deer early October, late September, early October, all the way through November, December, January. I'm in a stand. I could see deer. It's very rarely I go without seeing a deer out of my stand. Okay.
Right.
Like where I have it. So I do the work at the beginning. Now my stands are where they are because I've done the work. Now I'll go and get an inventory and see what buck I want to shoot in that area. But I know they're in that area here because it's all concentrated down for me here. It isn't
Right.
like I'm hunting miles and miles of all these 10,000 acres.
You're basically transition zones, pinch
Funnels.
points.
Yes.
I mean, I was the same way when I lived in Pittsburgh. I literally had one patch of woods to hunt. It was 10 acres, and 8 of it was posted because of tree buggers. So I was limited to 2 acres that I was allowed to hunt.
Yep.
And literally, there was 2 trails that came through that 2 acres, and you're basically they were garden raiders. They was going from yard to yard raiding gardens, and they would come out of a bedding area, out of that posted, and they were headed for the neighbor's garden. Usually, what they were
catch
doing,
them in between,
and I'd catch them in between. I shot one of my biggest bucks was on that.
You and your dad went and drug him off somebody's backyard.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, but that's how it is, and it's totally different hunting.
True.
Like it's totally different when you're in those small wood lots.
Hi, Steve.
And hey, Steve, thanks for coming in, buddy. Appreciate you. How are you? And that goes back to like when we were talking about scent and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you're out in Ohio. When I'm out in Ohio, if I go in there and I smell if I'm smelling it up, they know. In those woods, they don't smell that all the time. But if I'm sitting here and I could smell the neighbors cooking bacon and eggs,
freaking right,
I could smell.
They're grilling. I can smell
buses, cars.
I can smell the hookers' freaking perfume down the street.
From the hoods to the woods. From the hoods to the woods.
From the hoods to the woods. I can smell. What detergent they're using in their washing machine. What dryer sheets.
You could hear people flushing their toilets. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's just totally different. It's just totally different.
I find the little neighbor boys, playboys, stuffed in a freaking log next to me. Yeah,
but it's totally different. You know what I mean? And it's just the way you adapt to where you hunt. And I have great success.
Hoods to the woods.
I have great success here. What I do around the house, I always am on deer down here. I don't have no problem. And if you looked at the last couple of posts that I put out there, I got a 10-point down here, and I got a beautiful 8-point that's hitting my licking branch and my scrape right now. And they were there. I shot my deer the 16th, and the 8-point was there that evening, working at Lick and Vine. And I was like, man, if I would have known he was there. Now he didn't show up, but you better bet I wrote all that down in my log. Like, that week when he showed up and that 10-point showed up, that's written down in my log. So next year, okay, I see a decent 9-point on October 13th. He might not get shot next year. You know what I mean? So I'm going to wait till that Halloween week. That always seems to be a good week around here.
Magic time.
Yeah. The magic time.
We've been focusing on the lockdown, but, I think we talked about it when the three of us were on before. We were kind of talking about the lull and that period after the lull. Most people just refer to it generically as the pre-rut. But yeah, when they are seeking, but the does aren't receptive yet, that's a great time to be in the woods, man. You get
my favorite
bucks that are just cruising and looking. In fact, that big tall 9-pointer He was, I had him on trail camera, and at the blind, he was bumping does. And then he was on that trail camera a mile away. He hit that camera at like 11:45 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was 12:10. It was literally the middle of the day, that big, tall 9 running around. He was in that seeking, looking for, because I want to say that was like November 1st or November 2nd. You know, he wasn't locked down with the doe yet, but he was out. He was like, it's time.
I had the deer, that 8-point and that 10-point on my camera, Halloween night or Halloween day and November. That first 2 days of November, 1st and 2nd, they were there at 11:30 and 2:45. And I think there was one in there was a 1:15. I don't know if
they're out looking. They're looking.
So, and that's what I'm talking about, that transition point where they're going from bedding to feeding, from feeding to bedding. The deer will go where the doe are. So, and John was saying this too. He hunts the corn piles because doe got to eat. And that's sort of my mentality, is that at that time of year, I'm looking where the does are going to be, or where they're walking at, or where they're going to. And the bucks during the rut will be locked on a doe. But when they're done with that doe, that's what I was talking about. When they're done with that doe and they're moving to the next one, they're going to go frequent all those areas that they normally frequent again. They're just going to go cruising again. And that's where you can catch them. That's where I like to hunt that time, when they're coming off of a doe, or right at that Halloween week when they're going out and saying, okay, what's out here now? I got to go check all these areas. Right. And if you get a deer on a camera a mile away, like Kyle was saying, one time, then you don't get them there again. During that transition, when they leave a doe and go to find other ones, they're probably going to show up back in that area again at that time, because they frequented that area for a reason. So once they find their doe and they're locked on that doe, once they're off of that doe, they're going to go back and hit all them areas where they're normally at again. And it's just like going to work. You drive a certain way going to work every day. You take the certain exit. That's what the buck will do. But when they find that doe, good luck. And hopefully they walk past you.
Here's one more thing that I really want to touch on lockdown, Ted. I've seen a lot of chatter around this. I've never capitalized on it. But when they break out, that's another time when guys will talk about those mature bucks. They go on the cruise. They start really roaming, and they're looking for that last hot doe. Mm-hmm. And it's usually around now. November 18th, 20th, 22nd, 24th. Yep. They're breaking out. They're running out of hot does. Have either of you guys harvested a mature buck in like what they consider the breakout time?
I have not witnessed anything after Thanksgiving of rutting action, basically. Even down camp, like when I shot my deer on first day of like rifle, I'm saying like first day of rifle, you'll have some bucks running around chasing some younger ones, pushing a little bit still, but a mature buck, I have yet to see a mature buck on a doe during rifle season down there. Basically.
But what about just like cruising around, and they seem to be.
My buck that I shot 2 years ago, my 8-point, my nice 8-point, was just feeding in the food plot. Didn't care.
He wasn't even worried about the doe.
There was doe there. There was a few different bucks. He wasn't pushing the bucks off. He was what I believe was over and done with. And now he was putting the weight on.
He was
recuperating, because that's another great time, recuperating after the rut on food. I mean, you find the food again after during rifle season and on, or that second archery season, you get back on a food. That's just as good as that early food pattern to me. You get them that early food pattern and then that late food pattern. I think that's a great time to harvest a mature buck.
My buddy CJ up in Northwest Ohio, now he has the box blinds and he does bait. It's legal in Ohio, all that fun stuff, blah, 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 blah. Well, he loves the rut and the pre-rut. He has massive scrape lines on his food plots. There's young oaks that they just can't avoid. They can't help it. The overhanging branches.
Yeah,
the bucks, they hammer the scrapes under those oaks that basically around the perimeter of his food plot. Well, he swears by that. And late January, he says when it gets cold, mm-hmm. He says I'm not talking about 32 degrees. When it's 20 or below, when it's 15 degrees, they got to eat. He says they become a slave to their belly.
Mm-hmm.
This buck here, it's real heavy the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
Short tines, but it's real heavy.
Right.
He was almost 130 inch. I had him scored. That
Mhm.
buck and the buck in the picture behind my head,
Right.
those were both cruisers, all by themselves.
Mhm.
Second week in November.
Oh,
But
so right, maybe the breakout period.
yep.
When they were looking,
They were looking.
Looking
They
for
were
that
looking
last
for
love.
that
looking for
last
last
toe.
love. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Other than that, usually I'm done before this.
Mhm.
Usually I shoot them the first week of
Well, see,
October or something, you know.
we're getting on that pattern now, Kyle and Chris, for like Ohio right now. Like, my buddy shot the bully buck. That was a mature buck, and that wasn't until late January, or it might have even been February, the last Saturday of the last week in February, because that's when it ends in February.
Yeah, the last Saturday, I believe. Last
Yeah.
weekend in February, or the first
weekend in February. Yeah. He shot that on Saturday, and that was coming to the feeder. It was the cord. That's why I bought my Sitka gear, for those situations, man. Like that, you spend all that money on that cool weather gear like this year.
Yeah, he says when it gets cold, the serious cold, they
Mhm.
become a slave to their belly.
They have to eat. They have to eat and stay warm. I mean, that's the whole thing. So I like that late season. Now, I got mine on October 26th. I didn't even break out gloves. I didn't break out. I think I had my sick guy had a long sleeve shirt, the thinnest shirt you can wear. Like, it was warm. And I think a vest is what I put on. And 3.5 hours in the stand, my target buck walks on, boom, and I'm done. And I leave and go home, and that's my biggest buck of my life, and I'm done on October 26th. It don't happen like that.
Right.
But he was in the area. He was doing buck things, though, because there was a 4-point in my food pile. But I dumped out 150 pounds of corn and 50 pounds of horse feed over top of the corn, because I like, when it rains or gets dewy, that molasses from the horse feed, the sweet feed, the Midwestern mix, coats that corn. And that's just something a little extra that I like to do, because everybody dumps corn. Right. I like to put a little bit of sweet in there to coat the corn. That's just it's in my head. It might not make a difference, but to me, it makes a difference. So I have confidence in that mix. So I put it on my corn. 200 pounds of corn Thursday. I drive down there. I've been doing that for the last month before I get in the stand. Going down every week, dumping out food, checking my cameras. He was there September 22nd in Velvet, the 10-point. I didn't see the junk on his other antler. Didn't make him a 12, but he was there in Velvet. That's the last time I ever got him on film. I went down Thursday before I hunted. It was the 24th. Went down, dumped the corn out, changed my cameras, looked on the cameras. There was nothing in there besides small box. I looked at my scrape. I had a nice 7-point in the scrape that needs another year. Checked my scrape. There was deer hitting the scrapes. There was deer hitting my food. Now, I have the food probably 40 or 50 yards away from my scrape. I don't like to jam it up real close. I like to have something in front of me, which was the scrape, and my pile is down low on the hillside, so I'm higher up from the pile, just because they're there more. So I want to be up and out of the way. And I'm sitting there, and that 4-point comes in a way that I never thought a deer would come in. He came up from the road, which he had across the road. He comes up, and he's digging in that feed. The corn was gone. It was gone on Saturday when I got there. It was gone, and I was like mad. Like, I'm hunting over an empty corn pile. What am I going to see? Well, luckily, the remnants of that Midwestern mix, the brown stuff, was still on the ground there, and that 4-point was just scooping it up and eating it. Well, I'm staring at the 4-point. It was there for an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm staring at this 4-point. He's looking up at me, and I'm moving my hands, and I'm stopping, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm like, yes, and I'm doing all that stuff. And I just look out in front of me at the scrape, and here comes my target buck walking right to me, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I'm like, okay. I hit record, and my camera's facing the trees, the top of the trees, for like a minute 30. And I'm like, I can't move. He walked out, smelled the scrape, didn't do nothing. Walked out, smelled it, turned around, and went back. And I'm like, that just happened, and I couldn't do nothing. But he was facing right at me. and I couldn't move because I didn't want him to catch me. Because older bucks, they have that sense, man.
Absolutely.
They know if I blink my
Absolutely.
eye. So I'm watching his deer. He turns around and goes back into the thicket. But then
I bet you grabbed your crossbow then.
no, I had it like this across me, and when he turned around and walked away, I put it on my shooting reel. He walked away from me, and it sounded like a Volkswagen going through the woods. He come down that hill thrashing and crushing because he's seen that 4-point at the food. So he went in, come down the hill. It was a northwest wind. It was perfect, blowing this way into my face, hitting me in the left cheek and blowing up towards the billboard. He comes down and comes out and hits this rub, and all I see is a tree shaking. And I hear all kinds of racket. I'm like, oh, and then my heart starts going, and I see his feet just making a scrape in like sort of like the darkness because it was getting towards last light. And I just seen his white feet making a scrape, and he come walking out, and he was walking towards that 4-point, got scared, did a complete circle around him and stood behind him. And he come walking in, and I had my crossbow ready to go. And he stopped 23 yards away, and I don't know what happened, but he went boom and looked right at me. I didn't move a muscle, didn't do nothing. He knew I was there, and I knew that was my shot. I had to put it in that seam of his shoulder and blow through the shoulder, but I had to hit him in the right spot. My crossbow's dead on. Like I said, I could hit golf balls at 40 yards with it. I know I could shoot. I could shoot what I can do. And I knew when he looked at me and he looked away real quick, he had that like jittering head. I was like, he can bolt at any second. And then boom, boom, shot. He ran down towards the road, and I heard a crash, but I didn't know if he crashed. If he leaped over that road, he was in 4 foot of mud in the swamp. I was like, I hope he didn't go over there because that's going to be some work. I got down and up on my stand because that's when the nerves kicked in. Like I started shaking. I sat down and I took it all in. I started doing that the last couple of years. I just sit there, and I just sat there by myself. I didn't make a phone call. I just sat there with my hands in my pocket and just let it just go. I was like, okay, that just happened, or did it just happen? And then I'm taking it in, and I'm like, phew. I get down out of my stand, forget my quiver, climb back up, get my quiver, get down. Forgot my grunt call. Go up, grab my grunt call. Come down. Oh, my bag's hanging on a tree too. 3 times I went up and down my ladder stand before I got my wits about
I just shot a huge buck brain.
Yeah. And my legs are shaking, like going down the ladder. The ladder's shaking like this, and I get down there. And 3 times I go up and down. I start walking down with all my stuff laying at the bottom of my tree without my crossbow. And I'm like, I think I should take my crossbow and reload it just in case. So I get that, put my lantern on my head, walk down, go to where he was. Didn't see nothing, but I did see the arrow, the lighted knock, about 20 yards away. I go over, grab the knock, and I look, it's coated in blood. I'm like, okay, where's the blood at? And then I looked, and it looked like somebody took a paint can, like it should, and just poured it out down the hill. So I'm like, okay, walked down the hill, looked, seen a log. I thought it was him. I'm like, yes, look, it's not him. I'm like, he crossed that road. I don't want to call my buddy and tell him he went to the swamp because it's just I'd have to go home and change and put just different stuff on for this. So I get on, and then boom, I see him laying there 20 yards away from the dirt road. So I call my buddy up, did my thing, did my video and all that stuff, go up, get all my stuff, grab my car, because I have my car. I don't have my truck still. I grab my car and I drive down to the road. My buddy meets me at the road. He actually grabbed the deer and drug it to the road, which was only 25 yards after I gutted it up there. He drug it down for me. We grabbed it, put it in the car, and we left. And that was like that. But the way it happened was he was doing deer things at that time. Okay. He wasn't chasing doe. There was no doe in the area, nothing. It was the buck and him. Right. And he was PO'd if that buck was in his area. Yeah. And he made that scrape and he made that noise to scare that little deer off. So it was neat to see his reaction. But shooting that deer October 26th, I would have bet you my life I wouldn't even have seen him at that time. I wasn't planning on shooting a deer. I was just planning on going down and getting my stand ready for the rut, like getting all the kinks worked out. And It just happened, and that was it. And my buddy's been down there ever since the 26th, still trying to get a deer. So that just goes to show you it can happen at any time. Yeah,
and with my hunt, a little bit of a similar situation, but I think it was worse. I have a hook that I can hang on the tree that I put my crossbow on,
Yep.
And I keep it in my camera bag. So since I didn't take the camera, I didn't have that hook to hang my crossbow. And I'm in a climber, and the climber has my seat. There's just a couple little, like, basically the corner of the stand, right? And I hung, you know, the what do they call it? The stirrup, what you put your foot in to cock the crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
I hung that stirrup on the corner of my stand.
So the little piece of bar that sticks out from it.
Yeah. So it's basically at my knee level, right? That's where my crossbow is. And this doe come out, and it's a little doe. At first, I thought it was a yearling. It was all by itself. And I watch it for about a minute and a half, and that's where I screwed up. The second I saw a deer, I should have had my crossbow in my stand anyway, because they're in my hands anyway, because I said I was going to do it at sunset, and we were probably 6-7 minutes past sunset at this point. But if nothing else, when you see a deer, you got to get your crossbow, your bow, whatever it is, in your hands. We're there to kill a deer, right? We're not there to look at Facebook and crap on our phone.
I always have it ready about an hour before last light.
So I'm like, boy, I've really dropped the ball. But anyway, I'm watching this doe, and it really compounded, because she turned and she walked straight toward me. And then now she's about 10, 11 yards from me. And there just wasn't much wind, any kind of a movement. She's going to do this, and, you know, all that, get into all that crap. So I did. I'm just the one thing I did right for this hunt was I remained composed. Yeah. And that's a big thing. You can make a mistake, but to recover from it, you have to have composure. Yep. So I'm watching her. And as she got closer, I started to think, well, maybe that's a 1.5-year-old. Maybe that's not a yearling. And I wasn't sure. And I heard a really soft grunt. And I mean, this sounded like a contact grunt, you know, nothing aggressive, just like And I thought, oh, well, and I seen a big bodied deer with its head down. I'm like, oh, well, there's that deer. That doe's mama, right? The big mama doe's coming out. And the head rose up, and it was this buck. And I was like, oh, shit. Game on, right? Yep. Now I got a real problem, because where my crossbow was at doesn't really bother me when there's a doe here. But this is a mature buck, a shooter buck, one I'd like to harvest. And he's at about 30 yards. And he walks straight towards me. And he gets to 20 yards. And we're on that hillside. So he's not even with me, but he's only about 10, 11 feet, his head below, like, the base of my stand. Is only about 10 or 11 feet lower, right? And he's at 20 yards facing me. And I'm like, shit. This is not a spot you want to be in.
Not at all.
So after, you know, the doe's kind of milling around, coming closer and closer to the base of my tree, and still kind of facing my direction, if you will. And then he, after about a minute of standing there, he turned, and she started back toward where he come, and he hooked left, and there's a big, like, 4-pronged maple tree. And he got behind that, and he stopped. And I'm like, thank God. And I looked down at that doe, and she turned and was facing away from me and head down, feeding on them acorns. And I'm doing this, trying to get that crossbow up. The handle of the crossbow kept hitting the bottom of the base of my tree stand where my feet are. It hit it like 3 times, but I did it so slow, and so it's just like a tick.
And you felt some resistance. You're like, I can't pull it up.
Come on. Finally, I move it away from my stand, and I pull it up. And by this time, he's walking, and I'm in full on, you know, get your red dot on, get the safety off, get on. And when I first got on him, I wanted to shoot, you know, because he's quartering away from me, walking steady. And there's he had 25 yards, and there was a sapling right there. And I was like, no, don't shoot right there. So he starts walking again, and he only did, like, you know, when they say I need him to take 4 steps. Yeah. He did about 4 or 5 steps, and he paused at 30 yards, and I let it fly. But that feeling of being rushed, we as deer hunters never want to have that feeling of being rushed and just looking for any shot. We want to be like you were, kind of dead eye ready, and that perfect shot. Yeah. And you kind of judged your buck, and you were like, "Now's it. You know, he ain't hanging around any longer."
I knew I had to shoot him then, but I was ready to do that.
And you weren't rushed. You had him dialed in, and you were ready, and all that. I was sort of rushed, and I knew I heard the telltale thump, and then I saw him. He started bounding, and I could see the arrow flopping.
Was his tail down?
No. And he was and it looked to me like the arrow was high, and he headed right for the high bank, the bluff, and I'm like, don't go over the bluff.
Suicide, jump 8 feet.
I mean, obviously he'd be dead. The good is that he would definitely be dead for sure, even if it was a bad shot. The bad is the rack would probably be destroyed.
Yeah,
and he'd be a hell of a pain in the ass to get out of.
Hey Phil, how are you, buddy? Thanks for coming.
But he stopped about 8 yards short of it, and he turned and he hooked left, and he went out the way I come in, and I was like, I am not going out.
Using a squeaky toy. Right?
I have to go. I'm going to have to go out a new way, find a new way, go a different way, and I did. I made a big loop back to the road, totally away from where he went.
You did that was the right call though to get out of there.
Because it's a thin piece of public land. And I'm telling you I didn't have to track him.
No.
When I went in the next morning, it's a trail and it's along that thicket. So any little pockets in the thicket, I just would look up through there, and look up through. And before I get to the high wall, I was about to make my turn to go over to where I shot him, which was about 120 yards away. I just happened to look in the thicket. There he was laying there. I was like, oh, there's a deer. But that's my deer.
Yeah,
he was good. 25 yards from the border. In other words, had he gone another 30 yards, he's laying on private property.
Wow. Yeah, and that's another thing, too. And then, Chris, I will give you the reins here for the bear season thing. But a lot of people will shoot their deer and let it run off, and they'll get down and they'll walk over to their arrow. If they're not, I'm talking about if they're not sure. If they don't see the deer go down, a lot of people will shoot the deer. They're not sure. They'll walk over to that area. But a lot of the times the deer will run off and stop. And when you get down, you're making noise getting down, and you're walking over to that arrow, you're getting closer to that deer. That deer will get off. That's another kick in the butt for that deer, and he might run another 100 or 200 yards. So if you're unsure of your shot, just back out. Give him 2 hours. Just go get your stuff together and then come back.
When I shot that buck, I had about 15 or 16 minutes of light left, and I sat in my stand kind of like you. I just composed myself because the shot, there's a little bit of an adrenaline. Get excited.
Got to settle down. Yeah, for sure.
Had to settle myself down a little bit. I waited about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, let everything quiet down. The doe, she wandered off. I let her get far enough away that she wasn't going to blow or nothing, and then I was in stealth mode. I wasn't clunk down the tree. I was as slow and quiet and deliberate as I could be. I packed up my climber and I just went. I looped out a way I'd never gone, but I just get the flashlight. I will figure this out because I don't want to go anywhere near where that animal went.
Yeah, you don't want to push him because you don't know. Yeah, you don't know.
That made the difference.
And majority of the time, that deer will stop and listen if something's coming in. If you're getting down,
and if he's hurt bad, he may just go ahead and bed down. Right.
Yeah,
there.
That's why you get out of there. Yeah. But yeah, I say, if he's dead, he'll be there in 10 minutes.
He'll be there dead in the morning.
2 hours. Yeah, he'll still be there. Now, that's not saying if there's coyotes, bear, whatever, it's going to drag him off, but. If you're you want your trophy, you don't need to get in there right away. Just back out, go get something to eat, go take a rest for 2 hours, come back and assess it as you go. Don't force it. Like, unless you see that deer, if you see that deer fall in sight, then go after him. But if you don't see him fall, don't approach your arrow and walk towards that deer because they will bed down and listen. And if you go over there and he will jump up and go another 500 yards, and that just makes your tracking that much worse. So just give him time. Your trophy will be there in 15 minutes or it'll be there in 10 hours.
Yep.
You know, so just give them time. So
absolutely.
So that's about it on the lockdown, guys. So everybody understands the lockdown. It's just a tough time of year to hunt deer, buck especially. You know, it's just very tough. So I hope that some of the stuff that we talked about tonight, you pulled some information from that and maybe learned a little bit of something. That's what I always try to do. At least somebody can maybe learn something from somebody on here when we do these lives. It's always topic based. But I did want, before I give the reins over to Chris for bear season, I did want to thank Redmond Hunting for being a sponsor of mine this year. I'd like to thank a Limit Shield as well for their field staff for putting me on there. I'd like to thank Jinx Some Sense for getting on their pro staff. So that's just some of my sponsors and partners and affiliates that I'd like to say thank you. Check out the FishAngler app as well. I have a free invite app in my description, so please go check that out. I really don't mention my fishing affiliates during the hunting season. I wait till I do my fishing content and thank all those guys at that time of the year. But yeah, Redmond Hunting, awesome company. Jinx Some Sense, another Sean and Dawn are awesome over there as well. And Nate from Redmond Hunting, they're awesome. And Phil from Limit Shield, thank you guys for everything that you do for me on this channel and all your support. So with that being said, guys, our second topic of the night, and I don't know if Kyle, if you want to stick around for this or
I'm
whatever.
probably going to jump off. The dog's a little bit restless here. I got to get her out for a walk.
Yeah, man. Well, it was nice seeing you. Thank you for coming up. I appreciate you.
You having me.
You're welcome up here anytime at all.
Good talking to you guys.
Congratulations on your buck as well, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, buddy.
Later, bud.
Take care. All right, Chris. Well, our second part. Do you want to add anything to the deer portion of this, or you want to add anything?
We beat that to death.
Okay. So now I'm going to hand this over to you, Chris. You're going to take this over as bear season approaches, and it is what, tomorrow morning in PA?
Yeah, tomorrow morning it'll start. Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you take it from here, bud, and I'm just going to sit back and listen and watch the chat.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say. Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as prep wise, you know, these bear use a lot of the same areas that the deer are in. I mean, literally last weekend I was in a stand and I saw a large buck following around a doe at 8:45, and at 9:30 I saw a very large bear not 40 yards from me. So they're using the same areas, you know. The areas that I'm in is pretty thick anyhow to begin with. It's a lot of heavy pine, a lot of rhododendron type areas. So yeah, they use a lot of the same areas.
Do they hunt? Do you hunt them like you hunt deer? Like, do you prep and like scout and like look for sign like you do deer? Do bear make sign in the woods for you to like,
you know,
check them out?
A lot of the sign that you're looking for bear is usually you see bear scat, you see piles of crap, you know. You see that's one way to be tipped off. Another way to be tipped off, I mentioned this on my last podcast about making bear hunting great again, was you find these short pine trees, 5-6 feet tall or whatever, and the top's broken out of them. And what's happening there is a bear will leave its scent. It'll back up against that pine tree, and it'll rub and like scratch its back, depositing scent on this pine tree. And then what it does is it leans back and it reaches back and it grabs the top of the tree and bites it and snaps it off.
Okay.
And it falls to the ground. If you find a bunch of pine trees like that, you know that there's a bear in the area doing it. Last year on Instagram, I had a pretty good post going there. I had showed one of those small pine trees where the top was snapped out, and I took my phone and took a close-up of the branches, and there was a bunch of black fur in amongst the pine needles and stuff. So yeah, it was pretty neat, and that got some attention. But that's two surefire ways of finding bear sign. They will.
Do they have a mating season, Chris? Do they? Let me
Yeah,
just.
June and July is
Okay.
their main mating season. That's like the hot time. I mean, hot season. You know, for us around here, obviously it's warm.
Yeah.
It's surprising that the bears breed at that point in time, but
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's when they do it. You
Yeah,
know?
I thought there would be sign like you know how a deer makes a scrape during mating season. Do bear do any kind of sign like that besides the tree?
Not that I know of. I mean, I've seen lots of trees where they've clawed at them, you know, or they climbed them, and you can see actual scratch marks from the claws. But I mean, I don't really know of any other thing. You know, what I pay more attention to is when I get in some heavy cover like that, and I think it might be bear territory. I look more at the ground. A lot of people want to know how you differentiate a deer trail from a bear trail.
Yeah.
And a bear trail a lot of time will look like somebody rolled the leaves with a lawn roller. You know, it's so flat because they have those big padded paws. You know, like I said, a lot of saddles and side hills that I hunt, and you see these little trails, these little hollow spots coming up out of the rhododendron to the trail that I'm walking. And you can tell the deer trails from the bear trails because the deer trails will be all chopped up and cut up and muddy, where the bear trail will just be rolled smooth.
Really?
Yep. They'll just come up out of that rhododendron and smooth. You know, everything will be smooth. And
so they don't really dig into the ground because of their pads. So they push the leaves down and make them flat, basically.
Yep. Real smooth.
Okay.
Yep. They're if they take a trail.
I'm good, Jeremy. Thanks for coming in.
If they take a trail repetitively, a lot of times they will step in the same spots. And the way I found this out was hunting this one spot so much that this area had like moss growing, and there was a log that dropped.
Okay.
And we had some very frosty mornings, and I was in there hunting, and you could actually see the prints, almost like prints in snow, but it was in the frost.
Okay.
And the moss was depressed. The bear was walking in the same spots, setting his paws in the same spots, and when he'd step over a log, it was the same spot.
Really?
It was very, very repetitious.
Now, when I hunted bear, my only time I hunted bear up in Knox and Kane area, we were up there, and we hunted the 3 days or whatever it was back then, the bear season. But the last day we put on some drives,
right?
And we got on some tracks, and they're very elusive. They're probably I think they're more elusive than a deer. Everybody says the deer is the most elusive, but them bear are pretty smart. Like this bear, there was some snow underground, and the bear would walk on a log so he wouldn't make noise, and he would follow. And just the way this bear was walking was just so. He knew where he was going. He would get on the rocks. He would get on the logs. He wasn't in the leaves and doing stuff like that. And I ended up posting up, and people started pushing. But what I followed, the bear definitely had a certain way in how they would walk.
Yes, and I'll tell you this: I hunted, like you said, the season used to be like 3 days.
Yeah,
and we used to always have snow, and I would literally, I hunt a lot. I'm a solo hunter. I don't hunt with people. So I would just be walking around, pushing around myself.
You're welcome, Ray.
Still hunting, you know, and I walked through an area, and later on in the day, I came back to that area, and there was bear prints in my boot prints. You talk about stealth.
Yeah.
They like, if you wasn't paying attention, you would have never known the bear was there. He walked in my boot prints.
That's crazy.
You could see the paw prints right in my print, you know.
Yep.
I mean, that's stealthy.
For
very
sure.
stealthy. But
I'm
yeah,
just
they
sending
they
ransom.
are very elusive. I don't get into the group hunting thing where you got a group of guys pushing in standers and all that stuff. I'm not into that. I just had too many bad experiences when I was younger hunting with
Have you experienced any
people.
any Amish people? Like, as you hear that all the time, the Amish people go and push all the bear woods.
Yeah, yeah. Lately, where I've met, the Amish have the last couple years have really been coming in and infiltrating. Well, last weekend when I did I did an all day sit for bear or for deer.
Sorry.
I had an Amish guy walk through the woods in the middle right at lunchtime. No weapon or anything. He was just out scouting, I believe, for bear. He was just out walking around, So yeah, they're around. I don't even know, who drops them off or whatever, but
Yeah, it's pretty
they
crazy because I experienced it one time up there, and it seems like they go on top of these bulls and they surround this bull and they push. They have standers, I guess, on one end of the bull, and they all dive down in these hollows and just push these hollows out, and the people are up and around there, just waiting for the bear to come up, and they don't care. I guess I don't know. I've seen it happen with deer hunting. So I've experienced getting shot at by people down Ohio when me and Bob, my buddy Bob, had to get behind trees and bullets were whizzing past us because they were just shooting anything. I don't know if that's all Amish do that or not, but that group of people that we were with, it was very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And we had to come up waving our hands. I didn't know how that is with bear season, but I think they could be just as bad.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, last year I had two guys come up on me, two Amish fellas, and they stopped and we was shooting the breeze there, and they went on past, and a couple hours later they come pushing back through and further below me this time, and they went back the way they had came originally.
Mm-hmm.
And they must have got something up and moving because, I mean, there was about a dozen shots over there. And, I mean, they were emptying guns. So I don't know if they ended up getting anything or not. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, they're infiltrating. They're in there hot and heavy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the I use a lot of my same stands for hunting the bears.
Do you?
Because over where I'm at, it's like I said, they share the same territory. So
yeah.
I'm surprised this year I only saw that one during archery.
Yeah. But you seen something earlier, right? Didn't you see a couple cubs or something with a mama early in the season?
Yeah, I guess I did omit that. Yeah, that was what was that? That was
early.
That was the week before it came in for archery.
Yes.
It was the week before. Yeah, mama and 3 cubs came in, and I had pictures and I posted them all on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the mama and one of the cubs came right to the base of my tree and went around the behind me. And the one cub came in, and I use helium climbing sticks with a couple of aiders on the bottom 2 sticks. And the cub came in and reached up and started chewing on my bottom aider. And then he went up on his hind legs and grabbed the second stick aider and was chewing on it. And about that time, I looked over the edge of the stand. We got eye to eye, and I sniffed real loud. I went like that, and they scattered. But yeah, they're
cool.
They're spooky, yet they can be very curious animals.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like like them coming up to and sniffing my tree like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have crapped my pants if they would have crawled up the tree with me.
Been good video.
Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Anybody in chat have a question? I don't know.
Yeah, if anybody in the chat, because we've been going for almost 2 hours, Chris. I know you're getting up early. You're going bear season.
I gotta go get stuff rounded up yet. I shot my
Yeah.
gun this week. I had it, for some reason, it was hitting just a hair low right.
Mhm.
So I got it adjusted back up into the bowl.
Cool.
Make
Yeah,
sure.
I'm going to Ohio in the morning, so I don't have to take any weapons with me. I'm just taking clothes basically and some food. And I'm not getting up early, but I'm sure you'll be up way before me tomorrow. So
Yeah, I'm gonna get out there early.
yeah, do you decide where you're
Especially,
going to go?
well, especially because now I just before we got on the air, I
Yep.
showed you I got a picture of a bear
Mm-hmm.
overnight,
Yep.
in the same area that I saw the bear last week
Mm-hmm.
on stand that I was just telling you about at 9:30 a.m.
Sounds like that's a good
So
place
I
to start.
mean, obviously that's a good area. So I might end up there in the morning,
Okay.
and then Sunday, why I'll probably get out for a couple hours before church, and then I'll probably go back out for a couple hours after church.
Cool.
But yeah, it's a good area. It gets pushed hard though.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe that you can see bears on the third and fourth day, but it's happened before for me.
Yeah, that's good.
I've seen some bears on the latter days. So
How's the weather up your way right now?
I believe it's stopped raining by now.
Any snow on the ground?
Very little, but it's on the
Just in the
grass,
grass? Yeah.
so it'll be good in the woods though,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know.
For sure.
And hopefully it's wet enough that it'll be quiet
Yep.
getting in and out of there. So I mean, I have a feeling something will die tomorrow, but it might not be me shooting.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I
I
mean
got
they're in there. They're in that area. They frequent,
Cool. I got it, Ray. Thank you.
Obviously they frequent because I'm getting pictures still.
All right, guys. Well,
Which
anybody?
I thought that cold weather would put them into their sleeping areas, but
Yeah, and
they're
now
still out roaming.
Yeah, if they're out roaming, that's a good thing.
Yep, that's a good thing.
Nobody in the chat has any questions for Chris or myself?
No questions on
If
bear
no
hunting.
questions, and we're gonna let Chris get all his stuff together. I gotta go get my clothes stuff. I gotta pull them out of the ozone tank downstairs and put them in my scent-free bags and get ready to roll for the morning. Like I said, I'm not getting up early, but because they're gonna be out hunting tomorrow behind the house and stands. But tomorrow I think the weather's going to be way better than today down there. So I think the deer will be moving. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to my stand and sit there. I'm going to change cameras, change batteries and stuff like that, and switch out cards and just see what's there late season, because I like to get all that intel and info just to see what's around. And possibly that could help Brandon and my buddy Bob as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to probably go. We have a stand with a blind. I think Bob wants to hunt with his son out of the blind because Brandon's kind of not new to hunting, but Bob wants to make sure he's in the game and doing everything correctly down there on the lease, especially. So I'm going to probably hunt out. Well, I'm not hunting, but I'm probably going to sit up in a stand that's on the hill overlooking the blind in the food plot where the area is where the feeder is. So I could see it's about 80 yards away from the blind, but I could film all that area of deer coming in, and I could see a lot from up there right now with all the leaves down. So that's what I think I'm going to do. I know it could be windy on that hillside though, so we'll see what happens, but I'll be prepared with my all my gear and stuff like that. And it'll be nice to get out and sit for the evening and hang out with them down there. So Chris, good luck tomorrow. Keep me posted. If you're out in the woods and you're bored, text me or whatever. Let me know what you're seeing. Yeah. Thank you all for being in here tonight. Chris, thank you for joining me tonight. It's always a pleasure having you up and talking to you. We're going to do it again, but we're going to try to do it on your channel a couple of times too, coming up here real soon.
Yeah, we're going to have to get some lives going. Yeah, thank you, definitely. Mr. P. Mr. P said good luck. Ray's saying he's just now seeing rubs. What does that mean? They must just be getting frisky at this point. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually rubs are done by now.
Yeah, they are. If they're rubbing now, there's something going on, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep, something's happening.
If they're rubbing now, stay in those areas because that means they're frequenting them right now. Or they're coming off a doe and they're just aggressive and they want to make more rubs and more territory. So that means that's a territorial thing they're making.
It is a territorial thing. Like I think what he's saying is is exactly what you just said. Like, I had the boy out all this week, and when we seen bucks, I seen little saplings flying around, and I get the glasses up, and I'm like, crap, there's a buck rubbing a
Yeah.
tree right there in front of you. And
Yeah.
he's like, where? I'm like, right there. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So I mean, that's what they do out of frustration. I think
Mhm.
they're chasing these does around, and they're just not ready yet. So they're just a little bit aggressive. That's all.
And Ray, you said it's on little trees. I've seen
Yeah, exactly.
big bucks make small rubs. I've
Yep.
seen small bucks make big rubs. There's
Yep.
a big signpost bigger than my thigh, and I watched a 4-point and a spike rub on that. Now, that's not saying that a bigger deer wouldn't rub on it too, but I've seen a 4-point make a rub the size of my thigh. So I don't go by the size of the rubs or the size of the deer. You can't do that.
Those frustrated rubs, like we were just talking, though,
They're
it
tore
usually
up.
is saplings.
Yeah,
It
'cause
usually
they
is
tear
the
'em up.
saplings. They just freaking rip them up.
Yeah.
You know?
They do that on the small stuff early when they're getting their velvet off, because they can
Yep.
get in all the nooks and crannies of their velvet. And then when they're doing mate, like when they're putting in their territory, that's usually the bigger rubs. But that doesn't mean it's a big deer because it's a big
No,
rub.
I've seen a
Not at
spike
all.
tear
I've
up
seen
a
a
tree,
spike
man.
make two. They look like
Yeah.
a fork. It looked like a fork on a tree. It just
Yep.
rubbed up and down. So
Yep.
you
Just
can't really
gouge
tell.
it up.
Yep. All right, Chris. Well, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you guys for being in here.
Yeah, man.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Good luck tomorrow.
Yep.
Native Wildman, thank you all for being in here tonight. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Go over, check out our channel, my channel. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. Turn your notifications to all, and please go over and visit Chris's channel at City Sticker Chris. Watch some of his videos.
To the woods. Get me some watch time.
He needs some watch time over there for sure. So with that being said, guys, like I always say, take a kid fishing or hunting. We're going to preserve our sport and pass it on to future generations, and we will see you.
See you guys.